All right. In this one, we are going to learn, it's going to be a short one. We are going to learn how to breathe. And that might seem like some kindergarten bullshit, but I was talking to like a 30-something-year-old woman not that long ago, and I taught her this and she was like, "What? I've been breathing wrong my whole life. This is life-changing shit. I'm cussing about it. That's how important it is. I'm getting cussy. Sorry if that offends you. Try to not be offended by the vibrations caused by my respiratory system, tickling the cilia inside of your ears. If you could explain to me the biology of how a cuss is interpreted from your sensory system and your brain, then and only then are you allowed to be offended by it. You can't be offended by something you don't understand. Anyway, there's a little bit of my ego coming out. All right, let's learn how to breathe. All right, so we're just going to extend this out. How to breathe properly. And you might need to teach your body this, because you may have been teaching your body the wrong way the whole time. Okay. So let's just talk about, we've just breathed all the way out. So we breathed all the way out. What does our body look like? Well, we've got our lungs. We're just going to draw these real simple. Don't need that. Lungs are blue. All right, so we got our lungs. That would be our right lung. Looks a little goofy, but that's okay. Then this would be our left lung. It's got that little cutaway for the heart. Okay, that looks pretty good. So we got our right lung, and we've got our left lung. Okay, what else do we have? We've got our ribs, right? We can't forget those. We've got our ribs. Go back to this. Got our ribs, like so. Well, that's a thick one. It's okay. Okay, got our ribs. And we've got our intercostals, which are in this state. We've got 3 of them, but I'm just kind of going to draw it real simply with one set. They're nice and relaxed. They're kind of loosey-goosey. Some of them actually would be contracted here, but it's okay. We'll just keep it simple, okay? And then we've got that thing called the diaphragm. And that thing called the diaphragm is relaxed. Kind of drawn that by making it a little wavy there. Okay, and it's kind of up in this position. Let me actually draw it a little more up in that position. Okay. So our lungs, when we're breathing out, they're actually smaller, and this is relaxing. Okay, let me draw the next little, so this would be exhalation. Exhalation. We exhale. Okay, so the air is coming out of the lungs and coming out of our mouth or our nose. Exhalation. Let's draw the next step, which is obviously inhalation and what's going on there, and then I'll talk through this stuff. Okay, so now what's happening is when we inhale, you can just feel your chest. Give yourself an inhale, just your chest. You can feel it expand, right? So your lungs are getting bigger, actually. Lungs are getting bigger. So our lungs are now larger in size. Draw them kind of puffed up like balloons. Kind of over-exaggerating this. But they're now much bigger, right? Okay? And our rib cage, actually, if you feel your rib cage, when you breathe in, it's actually expanding out too. It's going like, ooh, ooh, kind of like a little bird bringing its wings up and out. Okay? So your rib cage now looks like a bird's wings kind of extending out, something like this. I don't know why I always draw this side, the ribs much bigger, but I do. Okay, and then let me actually kind of bring these around like that. I may put a couple extra ribs on there, but you get the idea. You'll get the idea here in a second. Okay, and our intercostals here, one set of them has contracted, so now they're nice and tight, and the other sets have relaxed, and the opposite would be true here. We have different sets in different orientations, so some are like this, some are like this, and one's kind of like sideways. And so they contract just like, if I contract the muscles of my fingers to bring them back, it's like exhalation, inhalation. Okay, just like the wings of a bird. Bring the ribs up and out, like so. Okay, and so these have contracted to expand the rib cage. And this diaphragm too is also contracted. So now it's nice and straight across, nice and tight. And I drew these ribs maybe a little too. Let me move these. Let me move these lungs. I'll make this whole thing a little smaller. Maybe made these a little too big for my taste here. You don't have to change anything if you don't want. But I want to be a little more accurate here for myself. There we go. Okay, that looks a little better. I forgot this little guy right there. Okay, so now let's label this. What's happened here? Okay, so this diaphragm has contracted. Diaphragm has contracted. Diaphragm has a G in there. Diaphragm has contracted, so it's pulled in. Intercostals have contracted. Intercostals have contracted to raise rib cage like wings. And that's going to expand it out. Expands the pleural or thoracic cavity. Expands thoracic or pleural. I'm going to be more specific, cavity. I spelled cavity wrong. Cavity. I don't know how to spell that. I don't know how to spell a lot of things, and it doesn't want there's probably an I in there. There we go. Okay, cavity. Okay, which this means that then our lungs have expanded, right? When we breathe in. Okay, might seem real basic, real kind of stupid at this point. But let's actually walk through this. Inhalation. Okay, what is actually going on here? Okay. So this is actually increasing the volume. Okay. I got a little... I'll be right back. I got a little prop here. Okay, I'm back. All right, so we're increasing the volume here. And when we increase the volume of something, the pressure decreases. Okay? So compared to out here, so this is the outside, pressure up here, pressure will be lower. Pressure is lower outside the body. Or I'm sorry, it's higher. It's higher. Duh. Higher outside the body. And pressure is lower inside the lungs. Whereas pressure is lower in the lungs. Which means that the gas is going to air is going to want to go into the lungs and equalize the pressure from outside the body to inside. Okay, and the exact opposite is true for exhalation. So this arrow actually goes in both directions. So now if we relax our diaphragm and we pull our ribs back down with other intercostal muscles and relax the ones that pull it up, what's going to happen is we're going to increase the pressure here. We're going to increase the pressure inside. So we're going to increase the pressure inside. So the pressure is higher in the lungs, right? Because we're giving it a smaller volume. And then the pressure is lower outside. Pressure is lower outside. Outside the body. Okay? And I got a little thing here to demonstrate this. And it's just a freaking water bottle. But it's very good. All right, so I got a cap on this water bottle. This water bottle is empty. And if I squeeze on it, the cap's on it, I can feel it fighting back. The pressure in here is now higher than it is outside. And if I lift this off, let's see if we can actually hear air coming out of it. Now the pressure is the same. Okay, now the pressure is lower in there because there's less volume. And what's going to happen when I actually decrease? Hold on, let me go back to this. So the pressure in here is very high because I'm squeezing it. I'm reducing the size of this container. So the air molecules have less space to bounce into each other because the size is smaller. And so they want to get the frick out of there. They don't want to be all crammed in there. And so they can. As soon as I take this off, you can hear it coming out. Let me do it one more time. Down by the mic. All right, so I'm going to release the cap, and you're going to hear the air come out of the bottle. I hope you heard that. It's better when you do this in person. We're going to play with this stuff in lab too. But now if I was to be able to expand the size of this thing, you would actually hear air rushing into it if the cap was off. Like if I could just continue to expand the size of this, that's what I'm doing there with my lungs, decreasing the size, expanding this. I'm going to expand the size of my lungs. The air rushes inside because as I increase the volume of my lungs, there's more space for the gas to bounce around, so the pressure's lower. So air wants to rush in to equalize the pressure. Okay? It's very similar to diffusion. High concentration to low concentration. Pressure is just talking really about concentration of gas with regard to volume. Okay? So when I increase the pressure inside the lungs, like here, it's very high, the air is going to want to leave. All right? I don't have a way to do this other inhalation part, but it's the exact opposite. As we increase the size of the lungs, the air is going to want to enter. Decrease the size of the lungs, pressure increases, air leaves. Increase the size of the lungs, volume decreases, air wants to enter. Okay, so there's two things that play here. There's the size of the rib cage, and then there's the diaphragm. And here's where I'm going to teach you how to learn. So when you breathe in, teach you how to breathe right here. The rib cage, most people are good with this. The rib cage should expand. All right? Most people are totally good with that. But the other thing that should be happening is the diaphragm's contracting and pushing down on the abdominal cavity. Your abdomen should expand. Your belly should stick out more when you breathe in, okay? Most people aren't doing that. We're walking around with real shallow breath, just messing with our rib cage and not using our diaphragm. So this is what our discussion activity is going to be about, is a week of breathing like this. And we're all going to do it right now. We're going to breathe in with our hand on our belly and our hand on our chest. And when you breathe in, your belly and your chest should both be expanding. And then when you exhale, they should both be decreasing. When you breathe in, they both should be expanding, belly and your ribs, or your pleural or thoracic cavity, and your abdominal cavity should both be expanding. Another way to think about this is you should have a firm back and a soft front. Your front should be movable and your back should be nice and firm when you're breathing. You want to relax your guts. If you have real tight abs going on, you're not going to get as much expansion of the belly. And the diaphragm is going to be doing less of your breathing. And you're going to be relying more on your ribs. And when you do this, this actually, like we saw earlier, there's neurons here, right, that are connecting your brain to your respiratory system. And we're going to talk about this, sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems. When you do this type of breathing, this belly breath, you're telling your body to relax. You're telling your body, hey, it's okay. If you're not doing that, you're telling your brain, if you're only breathing with only your ribs and not your belly, not your diaphragm, you're telling your brain, I'm in danger. My guts are not relaxed. I'm tight. I need to activate my fight or flight system. So your breath, you can control your breath with your brain, and the way you breathe controls your brain and how you feel, controls your anxiety response. Okay? All right. That's how you breathe. You breathe with your belly. You don't breathe with just your ribs, just your chest. You breathe with your belly because we're pulling down on this diaphragm. This diaphragm is contracting down, and so it's pushing our guts out. So when you really are breathing properly, you are breathing with your belly. You're breathing with your diaphragm. Okay? All right. I'll see you guys in the next one. Now you know how to breathe. It's pretty crazy. I wish somebody would have taught me that when I was freaking 20.